Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I want you to welcome to the first episode of a very special series on the mechanics of mediumship. Over the course of this series of presentation, we'll explore the intricate workings of mediumship, a subject that has fascinated many people, including myself, for centuries, but as Luis here knows, remains kind of shrouded in mystery, right? So, to guide us in this journey, I am so thrilled to be here with Luis Lima, who is not only an expert in this in spiritism in general, but in this topic of mediumship in particular. And today, Luis will introduce us to this foundational principles that is found in the book, The Mechanics of Mediumship, what it is, how it works, and why it's such a powerful tool. I'm ad-libbing here, Louise, introducing you, but this is just a foundational principles, and he's going to talk about how all of the content in this amazing book is so powerful so that it can help us connect with something that is in pervasive in our realities, but most of us don't understand. But whether you're new to the subject or you've been curious, right, this, I am sure, our time together will shed some light on the nature of spiritual communications and the profound impact it can have on our understanding of the universe. So let's dive in as we begin to unravel the mechanics of mediumship, part one, with Luis Lima. And Luis,
Thank you, Marcia.
for
Uh,
those who may not know you, let me introduce you, if it's okay, right?
sure.
Luiz Lima was born in Rio, yes, Rio de Janeiro, in Brazil. And several decades ago, 1990 specifically, Luis moved to the United States where he came in contact with Spiritism. He has been lecturing on Spiritism on both Portuguese and English for many years. He is a member of the Kardec Spiritist Renovation Spiritist Center in Coconut Creek, Florida. He is also an engineer, and he currently works in the field of computer network. Luis, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I am eager to hear from you, and I'm going to pass the mic to you and go to backstage.
Okay, Marcia. Thank you very much. I'm very excited myself to be part of this, and it is a fascinating subject, as you said, and this has been around for centuries, and I think it took us a long time to know a little bit more, and we learn a little bit more every day. But this particular book, The Mechanics of Mediumship, that was dictated by Spirit Andre Luis. And this is a book that, believe it or not, it intimidates people. And it's understandable. It's completely understandable. It's a heavily technical language, difficult to understand, even worse for those who are not really into the technical world, technical things. Not everybody is. Some people like other things, and the book becomes a challenge. So what happens is the first 8 chapters of this book, Andre Luis is going to talk about electricity, magnetism. So you go like, what what does it have to do with spiritism? And then after chapter 8, the thing starts to become a little bit more familiar. However, a lot of people just don't make it that far. And why is that? Because the book describes, or that's the purpose of the book, it describes several things. We have some here, the mediumistic communication and the process, uh, the medium's participation in the process, his head, his biology, how does it happen? It talks about specific types of mediumship, which are more difficult to comprehend. It talks about prayer. But most of all of this from this scientific slash technical point of view. So it's a book that's going to take science and explain what mediumship is and how it happens. One interesting thing that the book itself mentions, it's in the back cover, and it's this phrase here, which says a lot: using the physical sciences of the material world. Look at that. Using the physical sciences of the material world as a reference. André Luiz, the author, offers an enlightening study of the intricate mechanics of mediumship. So what he's saying here is the author, André Luiz, is going to use knowledge that we have in our common material world as a reference. So everything goes by analogy. He tries to make analogies. Think about this, it's more or less like this in mediumship. Think about that, now it's more or less like this. However, and that's what makes everything even more confusing, if you will, the book was published in 1939. Well, we're talking about almost 100 years. How much did we know in terms of science and especially physics in 1939 compared to today? Almost nothing. So the language that André Luiz had to use, the examples that he had to pick to explain by analogy are very basic. Today, we have knowledge that we don't have to explain a lot of things, because we all know physics to a certain level that we can just mention something that doesn't need to be explained because our level of knowledge on the subject. I bet if he was writing this book today, the book would begin something like this: as we know from quantum physics, and so and so and so and so. But in 1939, quantum physics was barely 15 years old. We didn't know a lot. We knew almost nothing compared to today. So the vocabulary on the book is heavy, and it kind of makes people go away. So what we are going to do here on this series of programs, especially in this first program here, we are not going to go word by word on the book, not even chapter by chapter. We are going to bring the idea of creating an analogy in modern terms, something that we know today, that we use today, that makes it more relatable to us, instead of trying to place us back in 1939. Okay, so let's keep moving. We're going to go slowly here, especially in technical terms. Let's see how we can get this explained. So here's our analogy. We have a charger here for example, a laptop. It could be for a smartphone or anything you can think of, but let's just take a laptop here. So the charger has a purpose, which I'm calling the target. The purpose is to charge the laptop. That's a simple thing. We have these, tons of these in our houses. It's out there in the world. How does it work? Well, very simple. Nobody needs to read about it. We just know. You plug into electricity and it works. It will charge the laptop here in this example. Now, when you plug into the outlet, what is happening there? You have electricity going through this charger into the laptop, but where's the electricity coming from? Where is the source of the electricity that we get in our outlets in our houses? Well, the source is the electricity that comes from these electrical substations that we see out in the streets, out in the city, the towns. That's the source of energy. So the key here, everything happens and is explainable when you understand what the charger does. So all we know so far is the charger has two plugs. One end goes into the outlet, the other end goes into the laptop. Well, let's open this up a little bit. Let's open up this charger. This is what we have inside. So what happens is, coming from the left to the right, this thing gets plugged into the outlet. So electricity starts to flow in on the blue wires that you see on the left side. Then these wire, what we do is we wind this around a magnet. This square thing that you see here is a magnet. And on the other end, we do the same thing. We wind another wire that goes to the other side, to the laptop. The way the way we wind this on the left side is not the same way we wind on the right side. That's not important, but that's why you see the left and the right side slightly different on the picture. It's not important for us right now because this would be for the engineers. So this is what happens. We have a little simple magnet that kind of transfers things from one end to another, from one side to another. So when you plug it into the outlet, what happens is there's electrical current coming from the source out in the streets into your outlet, and it goes inside the charger. Meaning it goes inside the wire that what we do, like I said, we wind it around the magnet. So when the electricity passes through that wire on the left side, it generates a phenomena within the magnet. It generates, it makes magnetism circulate around the magnet. That is a phenomenon known as induction. That's why we hear from time to time electromagnetic induction. This is what it is. Now, when there is activity on the magnet, when induction is taking place in a magnet, you will transfer over to the other side. So on the other side, the green side here that you see also gets, what we get out of the magnet is the electrical current corresponding to the incoming electrical current. It's almost like please, quotes, it's almost like a copy and paste, almost. The green electric current will be, the process will be more accurate depending on the quality of the magnet. So the quality of the magnet makes a difference, okay? And then that green electrical current is going to feed the laptop, and that's how you charge it. That's what we do every single day in our lives. Anything, absolutely anything that you plug into an outlet has one of these things inside. Different sizes, different weights. Some of them are heavy, like in a refrigerator, but they all have this, all. So it is something that science knows in and out. And that's why we can make things better every day. If you think about in the old days, when the first electrical products came out, the size of this magnet was huge, huge, huge. Now you have a little tiny thing that charges a smartphone, for example. So it got better because we know more now than we knew in the past. Okay, so Andre Luiz looks at this picture, if you will, and he will say to us, this is mediumship. And I'm going to say, oh, calm down. What do you mean it's mediumship? Show me, because I don't see it. I see electricity and magnetism. And this is what it says. That's exactly what it is. That's the analogy that he wants to explain to us in details. So, what is the source in mediumship? The source is a discarnate spirit. That's going to, convey a message or something. But that's the source. So instead of being the substation out on the street, it's a discarnate spirit. Who is the target? It's not a laptop. It's the person receiving that communication. It's the medium. So now we have the source being the discarnate spirit and the medium being the target. So the flow of information goes from the discarnate spirit to the medium. That's how mediumship is going to happen. And the next question is how? Well, on the real material world, on the top of the screen, the source sends what? Sends electricity, right? The electricity is what feeds the whole process. What does the discarnate spirit, which is the source, sends out that's going to trigger the process? It's not electricity, it's thought. So the thought or thoughts of the discarnate spirit is what's going to trigger the whole process. So the idea is for the discarnate spirit to send his thought or a flow of thoughts to the medium. That's what is going to happen here in mediumship. When the discarnate spirit generates a thought, you will create similar to the electric current that we see on top, very similar, but it's not electrical. There are no wires. So what we call here is mental current. We could say it's almost the same thing. It's just not physical because there is not a wire where electricity passes through. But it's a mental current. On the other side, this mental current is going to be transformed into mental current that is compatible with what the medium's thought can pick up. So there's going to be some sort of transformation, just like on top, the magnet through induction does the transformation. Here on the bottom, the same thing is going to happen. The mental current generated by the thoughts of the discarnate spirit will be transformed to something equivalent and generate mental current that the medium's thought can pick up. So we need this, quote, magnet in between. And we need a magnet, really. We need induction in there. Where is the magnet between the discarnate spirits and the mediums? Where is this magnet? Very interestingly, the magnet is our planet. We've all seen these pictures, similar to this one, where the Earth has and generates its own electromagnetic field. So there is magnetism generated by the planet itself, which makes things very interesting because the electromagnetic field generated on planet Earth, it's not the same as, say, Jupiter or Venus or anything else, because these planets physically, they have different characteristics because they are not all made for the same purpose. So different planets have different purposes. So the electromagnetic field of planet Earth is different than our planets. That means if you take the discarnate spirit and you take the medium and try to make this happen on another planet, it might not happen. It might just not happen, because not necessarily the medium is going to be able to pick up. His thought is probably not going to be in sync with the mental current coming in after the transformation. Moreover, I would say it has been documented over and over again, by the way, since the early 1900s, that the electromagnetic field on the planet is not smooth and so beautifully designed like you see here, like this. There are places where we have what we call, using a more technical word, an anomaly of the magnetic field, where there is more or less concentration. That is something interesting because, let's say, for example, The discarnate spirit is out there. The medium is, for example, in South America. And, there's communication going on. They're able to do this easy. And then the medium goes to, let's just say, Japan. And then mediumship, or the process between both, might not be the same, might not work well, might not work at all, because we don't know if the electric magnetic field in Japan and other places is exactly the same. There are reports by different mediums throughout time that they feel more of the communication when they are in certain parts of the planet, certain countries, as opposed to others. So all of these things matter, and all of these things, have their place in this lineup that we're doing here. This is the analogy that Spirit Andre Luiz tries to make ultimately. That's his goal in the first 8 chapters of the book. So if you're afraid of the book, if you feel intimidated by the book, and there's nothing wrong with this, it's totally normal, because some people it gets too boring at times, it's too difficult, too complicated, then you kind of walk away from it. But what we're trying to do here is explain more or less the same thing, of course, using something that we hopefully relate. It relates better to our days, and we can understand a little better. So hopefully that was the case here, and you could grasp the idea. So this mental current, it's going to go to the medium. What happens inside the medium's head? Because we know the brain processes the entire biology of the body. The brain is not the source of anything. It obeys the mind, but biologically speaking, it controls everything. So how is that happening? What happens inside the medium's head that makes the process actually take place in the physical world? Well, let's try to explain that. In order to explain that, we're going to take one example. The concept is the same for all. So we're going to take a medium that has the ability to see things. So the medium has this clairvoyance ability. So in order to explain how that happens, first we need to understand how our eyes and the optical system works in regular material world, so we can compare one to another. So this is a picture of a brain. You can see it's cut off in the middle, and in this particular position, the person or the eyes are looking to the back of the screen. Okay, so we're gonna leave this picture here on the side so we can relate to it. What happens when you look at something? If let's say, for example, you look at a chair in a classroom, you can only see that chair because the light is on. If you turn off all the lights, absolutely all the lights, you can't tell there's a chair in there. So the ability that we have to see things depends on having light and the light reaching our eyes. So our eyes are gonna capture that image through what we have right on the front of the eye, the retina. So the retina is going to capture this light. And interestingly, if you look at the picture here, the eye is a ball, this ball. So in one side, which is the back side of the picture, that's how the information or the light comes in, the retina, and it gets passed to the other side, where you see a little bit here on the picture. It's called optic nerve. So the optic nerve is on the other side of the retina. It's clear on the second square here, the second image. So out there's an image. So a chair, for example. When it passes through the retina, it gets converted into electricity. So what runs across the optic nerve is not the idea of a chair. It's not even light. They are electrical pulses. Think, for example, of a camera, your smartphone camera. When you take a picture, right? Outside your smartphone, what you have is the image. So you're taking a picture of a person, for example. So outside the camera, outside the smartphone, there's an image of a person. There's a person, a physical person. Inside the camera, meaning the light passes through the lenses, and inside the phone, there is no person inside the phone. The person wouldn't even fit in there. It is just electricity. It are electrical pulses. So the type of energy gets converted from light to electricity. And this electricity, these electrical pulses are gonna follow through the optical nerve until those two yellow almond-shaped types that you see in the middle of the brain, they're called the thalamus. We have two of those. So the thalamus concentrates absolutely all endings of nerves. For example, somebody steps on your toe, you're going to scream, you feel it. How do you feel it? Because your toes have sensors that run through your spine all the way to the thalamus, and they transmit that information to the thalamus. The thalamus receives the information, and you will process, we're going to see how, you will process that, and it's going to tell your brain, somebody stepped on your toe. That's how it happens. So these thalamus, these two oval-shaped or almond-shaped things, they concentrate all of these pulses coming from all the parts of the body. When it gets here to these thalamus, the thalamus doesn't do nothing at all except to send the incoming information to the place in the brain where this is going to be analyzed and interpreted. So the thalamus receives information that comes from the retina into the optic nerve. It hits the thalamus, and the thalamus is going to say, I need to send this to the area of the brain that deals with image. How does it happen? How does the thalamus send that information over? Well, it would be nice to think it's a wire. It would be a lot easier for us to think, oh, it's just a wire that runs through and the information passes through the wire and carries over the signal. Not quite. It's a lot more complicated than this. I think it's worth taking 5 minutes here to explain why, because there are implications here that will make, hopefully, the understanding of all of this a little better. So the thalamus, there are no hardwired wires that go from the thalamus to the place of the brain that's going to interpret the signal. There is no such a thing. These things are created, these wires, if you will, are going to be created on the fly. On the fly. They do not exist. How are they created? They are created by a network of neurons. Well, how does it happen? Let's take a better look at this thing. Let's bring a better image here. This is one neuron. When the information needs to be sent through, what happens is a million, enormous numbers of neurons will join each other and to carry the signal. I'm putting these technical names just because I have to mention these names once. So you see here the two ends of one neuron, dendrite and axon terminal. So what happens is, to create this wire that will carry on the signal, another cell comes in and joins the first, and then another one. And the thing is, you will create this wire based on one after the other, all of them. When the information passes through, the whole thing dismantles and kind of never existed. And then these neurons are going to form new connections to pass another flow of information. Then they dismantle. Then they reassemble again. And that's how information is passed through. The key here to pass through this information is where one neuron joins the other. So as you can see, we're going to have the dendrites of one neuron joining the axon of the other. Let's take a better look at this thing. This is what it is. This point of junction is called synapse. If you look at this yellow picture, it's strange because on one end you have one neuron on the left and the other neuron on the right, but they don't touch, not according to the picture. And in real life, they don't touch. So how come the information passes through? Like in physical world, if you have a wire, electricity is flowing through. If you cut the wire, that's it. You just shut down. No electricity will pass through. Here is different. So this is how it works. The information, the electricity, the electrical pulses coming from the thalamus will flow through the first neuron, let's say, the one on the left here that we see. So here's electricity, the electrical pulses coming through. When it reaches the end of that neuron, you see these little balls that I draw here, these little circles. These are called synaptic vesicles. Synaptic vesicles. When the electricity hits those, it breaks them. It causes leakage. It causes leakage. Inside these synaptic vesicles, what we have are chemical elements called neurotransmitters. So these neurotransmitters that were being held in these little bags, synaptical vesicles, now the synaptical vesicle opens up and there's leakage. The chemical elements are free now and they will reach the next neuron. The next neuron has receivers for those neurotransmitters. So what happens is these neurotransmitters will hit the axon, the neuron on the right side, which senses their presence and reassembles back the signal to be electrical. It sounds complicated. And then we ask, why so complicated? It could be easier, right? Why God has made it so complicated? That's not for us to answer. However, there's something that we pick up from this, and that's very interesting. So the language of the brain is both electrical inside the neurons and chemical in between neurons. So the information that the thalamus has to send over to its destination goes through this a million times, because how many neurons do you need to pass the signal through? 1 million, 500,000, 2 billion? So this process, electrical, chemical, electrical, chemical, electrical, chemical, electrical, goes on and on and on and on and on, as far as needed. There is no fixed number of neurons that make it happen. No. Now, interesting. For example, if I ask you, let me show you this thing here. If I ask you, what is this? Most people, I would say 100% of the people are going to say, this is a pen. And I say, okay, this is a pen. It's a very objective question. You look at it and you see, and you say it's a pen. So everybody's going to say the same thing. Now, if I ask you, is this pen beautiful or not? Hmm, that complicates because you can't guarantee that everybody's going to say the same thing. Some people are going to look at this and say, this is an ugly pen. Some other people say, yeah, I don't care. Some other people are going to say, this is the most beautiful pen I ever saw in my life. So the answers are not as straight as what is this? Answer is a pen. Why? Everything that is an objective question uses the electricity pulses, electrical pulses. Everything that is an opinion, a perception, uses the chemistry, uses the chemical elements, the neurotransmitters. And not everybody has the same neurotransmitters with the same quantities and amounts and everything else. It is different for every one of us. That's why people have different perceptions. Perception, the idea of perceiving things ties into neurotransmitters. When the quantity, the amount of neurotransmitters in the brain is altered for some reason, we can have weird results. People saying things that they don't see, or saying things that are incorrect according to others, because it is very, very, very personal. That's the word. It's different for everyone. Okay, so all of these things that we said so far, this is only to say how complicated it is for the thalamus to send the information over to its destination. And now the next question is, what is the destination? And the destination is what we call the cortex. Well, what is this cortex? We hear this word eventually here and there. What exactly is the cortex? First of all, you can see that on the picture that represents the cortex here, there are different colors. And that's on purpose. That's how science represents the cortex. With time and study and technology, we found out that when you look at the brain, right in the center here, you can divide in areas. And this is known. It took us a long time to get to this point, but we know this now for good. The front part of our brain, the brain is divided in these four parts, right? So the front part is called frontal lobe. And you can see we have side and we have a part in the back here. Well, you can see the part in the back here is called occipital lobe, and it's responsible for the recognition of images. So when you look, going back to the beginning, when you look at the chair, all these things are happening. All the optic nerve takes action. It goes through the thalamus, synapses, and all. It will make its way to the occipital lobe. Why doesn't it go to, for example, the frontal lobe? Because the information that hits the thalamus comes knowingly from the optic nerve. And the thalamus knows if it came from the optic nerve, it needs to be sent to the area in the cortex that is responsible for the recognition of images. So things never cross here. Everything works perfectly. So when it gets to when this thing is sent over to the occipital lobe, think about this. This is a physical part of the brain. It's a collection of cells. It's a collection of cells. How come cells are going to interpret these bunch of electrical pulses and tell you this is a chair? It can't be done by cells because it requires intelligence. You need to be at least one layer above that. At least. One layer above that means you're going to have to go to the perispirit. And yes, then it gets up there, the perispirit analyzes, interprets, and says, and sends the answer back to the brain. And the answer is, listen, this is a chair. And by the way, you already know this thing. It's not new for you. This is how things work in the brain. It is complicated. Yes, it is. It's not easy. Can you imagine how difficult, how many people, how many scientists had to work throughout the centuries to get to this point, to know this? And sometimes we think we don't know anything, and we don't. This is tiny, tiny, tiny knowledge compared to everything that's up to be discovered. Anyway, for our purpose here, so this information goes to the cortex, it is interpreted, and we go from there. So we can divide these 6 images here that create the flow of how things happen. We can divide in 3 parts. The retina and the conversion through the optical nerve, it's how you acquire the information. So I'm going to call this acquisition. Then when it goes to the thalamus and transmitted over, I'm going to call the control, because that's what the thalamus does. It controls the incoming information and sends over. It does the logistics in the brain. So that's the control. And the cortex is responsible for the interpretation of what's being sent over. This is physical, everything that we spoke here. That's how you look at a chair and you say, this is a chair. You look at a banana and say, it's a banana. Now, think about mediumship. So a medium comes to you and says, there's a spirit sitting at the chair. And you look at the chair and say, there is nobody sitting there. And the spirit, the medium is going to say, well, but there's a man sitting there. And you get some more people, they all look at the chair and there's no one sitting there. Why? Because think about this. For the medium to see a spirit sitting at the chair or anything in that route, does he or she have to have her eyes open? No. By the way, most of the times the medium closes his eyes so there's no interference between the physical ability to see and what is perceiving mentally. So most of the times the medium will close their eyes. So if they close their eyes or, nobody else sees it, there is no acquisition. Nothing came through the retina. Nothing was passed on to the optic nerve. Nothing made it to the thalamus to be sent over somewhere else. So how does the medium get the information? He bypasses the incoming information, bypasses the acquisition part, bypasses the control part, and goes straight into the cortex, pre-interpreted. Pre-interpreted. How come? How so? Well, that's mediumship. That's how the medium receives, remember those mental currents with the thoughts coming from the discarnate spirit, and you will go through the medium's pineal gland. And then it goes to the cortex, to the area of the cortex, pre-interpreted. This is how mediumship happens. It's an interesting process. Of course, we're doing a superficial, very superficial overview of this. We could go a lot deeper, but there's no need. What we're trying to do here as spiritists, we are not scientists. As we're doing here, what we're doing here as spiritists is trying to comprehend the process. This is the first program. And then later on, we're going to talk about the influence of the medium and other things. But this is the basic. This is how the communication takes place and how the process inside the medium's brain occurs. So, we've spoke about mediumship in general. Now let's classify mediumship a little bit. And that's going to be at the last part of this first program. So the mediumship phenomena has to be well understood. So we are going to start with what we call the paranormal phenomena. which can be divided into two things. One is animism or animistic phenomena. The animistic phenomena is originated by the incarnate spirit. It's not originated by a medium. I'm sorry, not originated by a discarnate spirit. It's originated by the medium itself. There are two types, or we can divide the animistic phenomena in two. One is objective, the other is subjective. Objective animistic phenomena is something that the medium triggers, but everybody sees. It's objective. Everybody sees. So we got two examples in there: telekinesis and pyrokinesis, the ability to set things on fire. And when that happens, everybody sees it. Everybody around will see it. It's a very objective phenomena. Now, there's also the animistic phenomena, but subjective, meaning the medium, it's inside the medium. He will see, he will describe, but nobody else does. Three examples here: telepathy, precognition, psychometry. Psychometry is going to be one of our programs in the future. So this is animistic, meaning the medium is the one initiating the process. There is no need for a discarnate spirit. Now, the second type of paranormal phenomena is mediumistic. Mediumistic phenomena is originated by a discarnate spirit. How? Discarnate spirit produces thought that generate mental current that goes through the electromagnetic field of the earth, that generates mental current into the medium's thought, and it will produce some type of effect, some type of mediumship. Mediumistic phenomena is also divided in two parts. Physical phenomena would be something that is objective. For example, noises. So if there's a physical event, a physical mediumistic event that produces noises, everybody in the area or in the room will listen to it. If somebody knocking on the door or something. Apparitions, for example, everybody would see that. And then there's mediumistic phenomena, but not physical. Intelligent. Intelligent means it needs the medium's brain. It needs the medium's brain. And here are some of these phenomena. Clairvoyance, which is the one we based on our explanation. Hopefully I was able to convey the message to you. Some more here. Clairaudience, psychography, when the medium writes based on what's being dictated to him. Psychophony, where he speaks what's being said to him. And psychopictography, which is when they draw pictures. Sometimes nice images, sometimes professional image style, actually. So these are the two types of phenomena. So we are concentrating today, we explained one of these phenomena, mediumistic phenomena, an intelligent mediumistic phenomena that we used as an example called clairvoyance. Like I said, throughout the course here, throughout the programs, we're going to talk about some of these here and there, but we are going to have a special one on psychometry, which is very, very, very interesting. And again, the book explains things based on scientific level. And that's how we are going to talk about psychometry at the time, all scientific. So to wrap this up, let's try to, it's a lot of information. So first, I don't want to discourage you to read the book. But if you feel like it's getting complicated, chapter 1 and 2, skip the first 8. It's weird that somebody would tell you this, but the reason why I'm saying this is if you get stuck, let's just say on chapter 3. On chapter 3, you just throw in the towel for some reason. It's too difficult, too complicated. It's not for you. It's not for you. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. So you threw in the towel. However, when you get to chapters like 15 and 16, the book is gonna talk about prayer from the scientific point of view. And to understand prayer, you don't necessarily have to have read the first 8 chapters. So if you don't read the first 8 chapters, you're still okay for the most part of the book. Here and there, you're going to see something that, what is this exactly? Because it was mentioned in one of the 8 chapters, initial chapters. But for the most part, you're still okay. So don't get discouraged. That's not my point. My point is to encourage you to read it. It's a beautiful book when you understand it. And as far as the program that we just are completing right now, it was a lot of information. I know it was. If you want to see it again, if you need to, understand a little bit more, it's worth it. It's worth it. Mediumship is, like I said in the beginning, it's challenging to understand, and the book is also challenging. But don't give up. Okay. So that was it for the program today. And Marcia, come on over.
Hi. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for such an insightful introduction to the book, including telling people do not read the first 8 chapters. I love it. The messages do not discourage. The content is good. But Louise, I want to say thank you. Thank you for all of you who are listening to this program with me. And Louise, do you want to get to maybe a final words, thoughts, or prayer before we close?
Yeah, let's do a quick prayer here. Let's just concentrate on the image of our Master Jesus that allows us to have this opportunity with technology, gathering volunteers, placing in our hearts the need to convey his message to others, that we can trust by understanding the books that we read. So the same way we trust in Jesus. And Jesus, we wanted to thank you, and please be on the side of those in hospital beds, those in prisons. A lot of them don't even understand why they're in prison, but so they can receive your good thoughts, the influx of messages coming in from the higher realms. Thanks so much, and just so be it.
So be it. Bye, everyone. See you soon, Louise.
Bye.